Welcome to the Guardians of Hope podcast, where we bring together parents, nonprofits, legal, and medical experts dedicated to positively impacting children's lives. I'm your host, Cynthia Ramsaran. The purpose of this podcast is to inform and unite. Please seek advice from your attorney or doctor to address your specific needs. The thoughts and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own, so thank you all for joining and sharing. Welcome, everyone. Separation and divorce bring emotional and physical changes to families. When couples separate, they must plan for parenting their children, division of property, and future financial arrangements. These discussions can often be stressful and cause pain for everyone involved. It's hard to focus on the decisions when emotions run high, including anger, worry, and grief, among other feelings. Mediation allows family members to resolve these conflicts during and after separation or divorce. Mediators are neutral professionals who help participants clearly define the issues in dispute, keep open communication lines, and promote rational discussions and acceptable agreements. Joining me to discuss this is Amy Armstrong, a certified parent coach and co-founder of the Center for Family Resolution. Amy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I feel welcome.
Excellent. Why don't you tell us about your background and what qualifies you as a conflict resolution expert or specialist?
Sure. Thank you. I started off my career as a parent educator, focusing on parenting skills, and realized that very quickly, even though parents want to learn new skills and do better by their children, when the heat comes on and conflict starts to escalate, it's really hard to apply the skills. And so I was excited to have a couple different opportunities to get training as a coach. And I loved it so much that I now have started my own coach education program with the International Coaching Federation. And what happened for me as a coach is I found that there could be a connection between the skills that parents need and know are right for their kids and really how to use them when the going gets tough. And so once I started working with parents as a coach, I had some interaction with the court system through my own divorce, and I got to know some guardians ad litem who were trying to help families when their parents were in the throes of all the emotion of separation and divorce. And they asked me if I would create a course for the courts to use to help parents know, what do we really need to focus on during this sometimes dark transition time. And I loved doing the course. We use it countywide in our system. But what happened is this intersection between the skills and the coaching allowed me to start my practice where I could work with individual families to deal with exactly what their stressors were. Oftentimes it was communication, but what I found was that the old patterns that played out in the relationship that caused the end of the relationship were still going on even after they separated and divorced. So the big myth was that once you get divorced, you've moved on from that relationship. It really just changes names, right? From lover or, marital partner, spouse to co-parent, and the patterns actually continued. So really bringing the parenting skills in a coaching context gave me the idea to start a company. It's called the Center for Family Resolution. And we actually operate now a lot by court order. So courts literally all over the US, primarily in Ohio, but all over, use us to require parents to work on their communication, to work on how they resolve conflict so that they don't keep going back to court and so that they can resolve their case much more quickly.
Sounds great. Why don't you talk about some of the services that you provide?
Yeah, sure. Really, the first thing we do, which probably isn't what your listeners expect, but the first thing we do was help normalize the reactions that parents have in the heat of conflict. So a lot of parents feel so much maybe like they've failed or really feeling shame because they've had really big reactions. They've gotten into some big arguments. Maybe there's even been violence in their family, and they know they can do better, but they don't know how. So we normalize, first off, how the brain works, how our nervous systems work, how anxiety and fear can get the best of us. So that's a really big piece, is just helping people go easier on themselves and set realistic expectations of what they're going to need to do in order to handle their conflict well. So once we do that, we help them decide, do they need mediation? Do they need coaching? Or we have some specialized services such as parenting coordination, which is a court appointment that allows the parents to go to someone even after their court case has closed to get help implementing their parenting plan and address new issues that have come up.
Excellent. So you mentioned that it's sometimes court appointed or not. Can you tell me how the process works? Who appoints
Sure.
you? Who pays for the services and all of those details?
Yeah, thank you. Great questions. So, our dream is that people call us first and we help them figure out what they need legal advice on and what they just need emotional support with. We want to save people money. We want to save them time and energy and not necessarily use the court to help resolve their problems. So we do get court orders once people find out about us and they're already in court. So a lot of times their attorneys, their guardian ad litem, or the magistrate or judge will say, you know what, you guys are hurting. You're not moving through this in a very smooth way. Let's get you some help. And so the more people know about us, the more likely, right, the attorneys or courts are willing to say, let's stop the litigation for a hot minute and see if we can get you the right help. But truly, our desire is to get the word out that when people come to us earlier, then they're coming into a mode, a mindset of resolution and finding the skills they need early on to keep the conflict from escalating. But once they're in court, once it does become a court order, we actually help with the language of what needs to go in the court order so that we know who's paying for it, how they're paying for it, when, how often they're going to meet, how they're going to know when they're through the process. It is private pay most of the time. So I personally have the luxury of working inside the court in one county in Ohio, in Delaware County. And the court actually pays me to provide the service. So it's completely free for the moms and dads. But most of the time, unless courts have a specialized program, the moms and dads are paying for it directly. And sometimes we can use a sliding scale, but we're really looking at about $175 an hour for an individual session. And then it reduces down to $125 an hour per person for a joint session. So insurance does not cover this. Maybe someday it will. I know that we've made progress in some areas of coaching where insurance is starting to pay for it. But in the behavioral health arena right now, coaching is not covered by insurance. So it is private pay. And we often do parenting help with parenting plans with a payment plan in place just to help families that, you know, may not have access to the resources to get it paid up front. And our hope in all being very candid here, our hope is that people see that they can allocate some of the resources that would otherwise go to attorneys to really getting the help that's going to fix the problem from the root.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Attorney costs can be triple what you're charging. So mediation may be the first way to go. Yeah. So I wanted to bring this conversation back to kids and, you know, how this affects them my question for you is, how much do children get involved in the mediation process, and how are they involved in general?
That is a great question. There's a big myth in the family law arena that children should get to choose the parenting time schedule or which parent they're with, at least once they reach a certain age. And the reason I call that a myth is that as much as we want to hear the child's voice and understand their needs and understand the impact that each parent has on them, we don't like to see children taking on the burden of adult decisions. It's too much responsibility for them, and there's too many factors at play that they simply don't have access to that information. So we definitely want to get the children's voice in early and often. And sometimes that comes through their teacher. Often that comes through a therapist or someone that knows them well. And of course, through the parents. It's just that oftentimes in high conflict, especially, the parents have different ideas about what the child needs and wants. So we like to talk to the children directly when we can, as long as that child understands that they are not the decision maker and that we're just learning. We want to get to know them, and we really want to hear what's important to them. And then the adults are all going to put our heads together to figure out what's best for the child. And that's really where the guardian comes in a lot. In Ohio, we call them guardians ad litem. There are different names in different parts of the country, but this is the person to really talk with the child repeatedly, see them in both homes, get to see what's missing or what strengths they have in either home, and make sure that the agreements and decisions that are ultimately made in that family fit the needs of the child.
Okay. Amy, thank you. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Now, we know that there are advantages and disadvantages to everything. Why can mediation be a better option for families? I know you discussed a couple of things, but in general, what are your thoughts?
It simply helps people take charge of their life. People don't know what choices they have. And in mediation, especially with a coach approach, they can get clear on their needs, clear on their goals, and clear on their options so that they can make very educated decisions. And we make sure in mediation that anytime they need legal advice, because of course the law matters and we want them to know what their rights are as well as what makes sense to them and what their preferences are. And so we always work with their attorneys if they have them, or we make sure that we point folks to the right resources when they have legal, issues that they maybe don't even realize that they're missing out on some legal information that they need in order to be fully informed. But we want people to feel empowered. And the way we're set up at the Center for Family Resolution is we have any different configuration. We can meet with people separately. We can make sure that each person has their own coach, and then we come together, all four of us. Sometimes we do shuttle style where the people never talk directly to each other, but we go back and forth. So we want to make sure that we're working with people in the way that they feel the most empowered to get clear, to learn about themselves, learn about their options, and ultimately make the decisions that are right for their family.
Amy, thank you. Can you tell us more about where we can learn more information about you? I know you have a book that might be helpful.
I actually wanted a book that outlined some very clear basic parenting skills, and I couldn't find one that I loved. So I wrote one myself with a couple of colleagues, and it's called Real-Time Parenting, was published in 21. I'm just finishing up a book now called Mastering Boundaries, and it's a beautiful way to learn how to be true to your values and claim your power to resolve conflict. I do TikTok videos for co-parents every day, and I can be found on TikTok at Amy Armstrong Conflict Free. And then I also have Instagram accounts, Facebook accounts, of course, and I love for business folks to find me on LinkedIn. I do lots of speaking and work with courts. Matter of fact, in a couple of hours, I'm going to be on a call with 50 judges from around the state, helping them understand some of the processes that we can do to help folks implement their parenting plans.
You're a very busy lady.
I am. I love what I do.
Good for you. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you for having me.